Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern. Well, for some of you, for Mark and I, it is 6 a.m. Mountain because we're both in Arizona this morning. But it is time for Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to, well, sell more effectively and more logically. So, Mark, what are you doing in Arizona this morning?
Well, I'm in Arizona this weekend just hanging out with my brother and his wife, the four of us. My wife's here, and we're just kind of enjoying it. A little chilly to go running this morning, but I'll get my run in. I'll get my run in. And I know you'll get your golf in today too, right?
Yeah, it's we're actually going to hit the tennis court because I've got a virtual presentation to do. But Arizona is a little cold. It's a little surprising to me. But I was talking to a guy at the golf course yesterday who told me this is actually pretty typical. So yeah, but we just came off an unbelievable couple of days. We've been with our mastermind, kind of putting our heads together, and really, Mark, I'm so glad we did an in person event. Brought ourselves
Oh,
as
I'll
an
tell you
everything
what,
because yeah, it made such a big
the
difference.
it really does prove that you become the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. I mean, Jim Rohn first used that line. But the ability for us to collaborate, and this is so important at the beginning of the year, you've got to find your peers. Who can you collaborate with? Who can you, which really says, hey, you really need to join the Sales Logic
Oh,
Mastermind because
so
that's
true.
what we do. And of course, we'll be having one of those sessions this coming Monday. If you're
Monday.
watching this live, you'll be, this coming Monday afternoon.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and start the show, and because we've got a great topic for you today, we'll talk a little bit more about the mastermind. I'm so glad you brought that up, Mark. All right, here we go. All right, once again, 8 a.m. Eastern, time for Sales Logic. Before Mark tells you what we're going to chat about today, I always like to tell you how the show works. We start off with a question from you, the audience. That's right. If you want to be a part of Sales Logic, all you need to do is send us a question. We'll cover it right here on the podcast. We cover a hot topic, we recommend a book, and because we want you to leave with return on investment, we have a lightning round. So, Mark, what's on tap for today?
Well, the topic, of course, it's the beginning of the new year. So the topic is going to be how do we start 2024 strong, or how do you start any year strong? The question comes to us today from Dublin. David in Dublin, he says, I need to turn my sales service reps, my customer service reps, into salespeople. If we're going to hit our goals, where do I start? How do I help them understand the new role? In other words, hey, they've been in this kind of this customer service, they got to be salespeople. How do we make that transition with them?
Yeah, I love this. I love this question. I think it is so important for anybody listening to this. If anybody working on your team doesn't understand that their role is sales, you need to begin. You need to begin right there with helping them understand the why. And the reason is because every single person on your team that is talking and engaging with customers, even if it's just email, has an opportunity to listen to what customers' problems are, their challenges are, or what they're complaining about. And in that is your next sales opportunity. And so I would say to the team in Dublin, start with a why. Help them understand that this really isn't about sales as we think about traditional sales, but it's everybody's job to help the customer. And Lord knows Mark is legendary for saying that sales is just a conversation and it's nothing more than helping people.
Well, I mean, you're a master of really understanding what the customer's needs are because this is the whole thing. You know, the move from customer service, and I really hate to say it, customer service is all about taking care of existing stuff, taking care of the current needs that they have. The current sales is about incremental. You do a great job of that because you latch on to a customer and you stay with them and you just keep finding out more information. Because here's the whole thing: if all I'm doing is taking care of customers' existing needs, what's the purpose of what I'm doing? I mean, really stop and think about this. All I'm doing is supplying them with what they need. My objective is incremental. You see, sales is about incremental opportunities. So, David, what you got to be doing with your team is go back to what Mary talked about, the why, and it's really understanding Why is it that we do what we do? Because there's an outcome there. There's a benefit that the customer, that's really what your team has to be focused on. So David, I'm going to say, and I'm going to tell this to every salesperson right here at the beginning of the year, you take a few minutes, you stop down, you stop and you sit down and you write a list of all the outcomes that you've helped your customers create for the previous year. Not what you sold them, but what were the outcomes? And begin asking yourself, and we were talking about this the other day, how is that relevant to the customer today? How is that relevant to the customer tomorrow? And you really make sure that you are aligned with where your customer is moving to.
Yeah, I'm going to say, David, if you really have got to get your team to embrace the fact that they are now taking on a sales role, you're going to need them to tell you that they need to do that. This is a great exercise for any of us to do with our teams that are on board, but really get them to define, talk about what you guys want the customer experience to be. How do you want customers to feel in your organization? And how does that transition how does that transition your role? But they need to voice the importance of being in this position. And then you're going to need to realize that if you're going to turn your customer service team into a sales team, you're going to need to train them to do so because I think of customer service, traditional customer service, as very, very reactive. The customer calls you, tells you what the problem is, and you take care of it. If that is how your customer service team is going to behave in 2024, you are way behind the eight ball. Customers will leave you.
They will leave you. And this is an exercise that, David, you should do with your team, and all of us should be doing. And that is, at the end of the day, ask yourself this question, or David, you ask your team, what did I learn today from my customers? Now, not like, oh, wow, they have 18 employees, or they do this, or they do. No. What did you learn about their business? Your objective is that you want to be learning about who your customers are. What are their needs? What are their challenges? And if you can't uncover something new every day for the conversations you're having, you're not doing your job, because then you're doing just what Mayor said. You're just taking orders. And you know what? If you're just taking orders, you're going to be replaced by the internet,
Yeah,
AI.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mark, what is where are we as far as starting the year off strong? What do you think people need to focus on in order to start the year off strong?
Well, this brings up a very interesting, and we were talking about this as we were assembled together for several days talking about this. You got to understand, where's your marketplace going? Where is your customer go? And are the outcomes that you created last year, are they still relevant? And here's a very simple exercise. Ask yourself this question. What were the questions I was asking? What were the needs I was solving? And then begin to frame them up with what you're seeing in your existing customers and new potential customers. Now, here's the way you break this down. I want to have two lists, because again, we were talking about this yesterday, I remember, in terms of customer facing time. How much time do we really spend customer facing? But here's the challenge. If we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what we're doing. What do I mean by this? I have my existing customers. Here are their needs. Here's my new list of customers, my new opportunities. And I've got to begin to ask myself, what are the similarities and what are the differences between the two? Because I see so many salespeople at the beginning of the year, they just suddenly start wanting to run after big opportunities, or this opportunity, this. And basically what they're doing is they're running after shiny object. If this new list doesn't line up with similarities of the existing list, I'm setting myself up for trouble.
I love that. John, I love your comment here. John's telling everybody this is such good advice for David in Dublin. We utilize our customer service team to make a call and thank our customers for any past business they have provided. Beautiful entree. They have a reason to call. That is so smart. Then we survey customers and ask them, what is their company department goal for 2024? We also have a list of any consumables based on their past sales history, and then had a discussion about being prepared. So smart. What an effective way to begin to slowly but effectively transition your sales, your customer service team into a sales engine.
You know what I like about that is John, this is so key. And we actually began talking about this back in November, remember, in terms of making those calls to customers. And this brings up something interesting. We tend to lose sight of reaching out to customers. We lose sight. And what happens is we become reactionary. And goes back to customer service. Sales is about being proactive. And I want you to ask yourself this question. We record these shows. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you may not know that we actually record these shows on Saturday mornings. And Saturday mornings is actually a great time to actually email leaders of organizations. That's right. You're doing some reading, you're finding something, and you actually email them. Hey, I just saw this, was just thinking of you. And think about this. If you're a leader and you get an email from a salesperson on a Saturday morning, you know what's interesting? Leaders don't stop working on the weekend. They don't. You and I may have other things we're going to be doing. Yes, I'm going to be going for a run. I'm going to be doing some other stuff. You're going to go play tennis, but you're going to be working also. I'm going to be working. And so if somebody hits me with an email of interest, I'm going to pay attention to it. You want to go up the food chain with people who you have a contact with, try that technique. It'll be amazing at what you'll find happening to you.
Yeah, Mark, I read such an interesting statistic yesterday. I brought it up to you guys in the mastermind, and that is that 38% of salespeople don't understand which prospects to prioritize. And if I were going to work with a sales team and start 2024 off strong, that's probably where I would start. I would ensure that everybody was really, really clear on who our ideal client is. And then everybody had a grid to grade their ideal clients against. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see salespeople make, and I've done it, is you spend time chasing business that is a waste of your time and effort. And you don't do that because you want to waste your time and effort. You do it because you never slow down long enough to say, is this the best prospect and highest use of my time? I think we're wired to want to get the business. So we kind of it's almost like when you start rejecting me, I get a little excited and I'm like, I can land this deal. And then you land it and it's the wrong deal. And I think it's so important for sales leaders to get in the mind of people that that saying yes to a prospect is saying no to another prospect.
This is so key when you're transitioning people from customer service into salespeople, because when they're customer service, suddenly the phone rings, an inbound lead comes in, and they naturally want to service it. Mm-hmm. But they service it without qualifying it. And this is why it's so key. Just because it's an inbound lead does not necessarily make it a qualified inbound lead. And again, David, you're going to find this to be so true. We all do, right? I mean, we get an email, we get a phone call from somebody, we get a voicemail, we get excited. But if you don't qualify, everything must be qualified. Because otherwise, just what Mayor said, you're going to be spending time with people you should not be spending time with. In fact, I'm going to say this, and Mayor, I believe you have 9 points that you feel
Yep.
that the prospect has to measure up against before you say, I'm going to entertain them. And what is it? They have to match up on 7 or 9?
Yeah. They
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So I use a grid. And, years ago, we developed this grid back. I was training salespeople back when I was a banker, and they were people that had never sold before. And we were trying to make it easy for them to figure out which prospects to focus on. So we simply developed a grid, and the grid looked, you literally put the prospect's name down on the left-hand side, and on the top, we had the 9 points going across, and you just put a little check in every box they had. And if the prospect met 6 of the 9, you set up another call. The first call was to figure out how many they qualified. So I think that's probably one of the biggest flips people need to make in their mind is you're interviewing the prospect on the first call. You're trying to figure out, is this a good fit for me? I'll give you an example. I had a call yesterday afternoon, right after our mastermind, with the CEO of a bank. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of financial institutions that I'm not a good fit for because the organization doesn't have some of my criteria. But this CEO was just checking every single box. And he had 9 of the 9. It was just really, really powerful. But I know that's a good use of my time.
See, there you go. See, banking, you came out of banking industry. It should line up. but you automatically said, no, I still got to have them go through that process. This is so key. Hey, I'm going to transition to Dave Sanderson, great member of our master of our sales logic mastermind group. He says, spot on, Mark, if you're going to grow, you do things others won't. And now think about this. At the beginning of the year, you set your goals for the year, and you go, well, I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll get to that tomorrow. And the old expression, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. David goes on to say, you have to have the humility to prepare, to have the certainty to execute in the moment, and you do. So I'm gonna transition this to David from Dublin with his sales team. Your team may have goals for the year, but you got to help them understand, what are your goals for this hour? What are your goals just for the next day? What are your goals just for the next 5 minutes? And you've got to be able to vary that cadence to keep people motivated. I find that, you find that, right? There are times that you're like, man, I want to go play tennis, but I got to get this done before I go.
Yeah.
So you do, and this is why, I have that 10 a.m. rule. I want to do something significant before 10 a.m. each day. Why? Because it helps me feel much more motivated to accomplish. You have your own things because you set little goals. You say, hey, I want to work out, but I'm going to make sure I get this done before I go play tennis, before I go mountain bike riding, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love this from our new listener with Creator Media. What specifically do you need help with? That's a question that they ask customers. This can be a long list. Listen and take notes. I was reading statistics yesterday, and a good salesperson spends 55 to 60% of their time listening. I think if I were going to get my sales team really to be successful this year, I would work with them on developing their listening skills.
I'm going to challenge you on that. I think they spend 65% of their time hearing, but they're not listening.
Mm.
Because I think what happens is we hear things, but we don't think through, what's the question I should be asking? What's the question? We automatically race and try to compartmentalize and go to a solution. And I think what we need to do is we need to listen to craft the question that we need to be asking to go deep. I look at every conversation we have as an onion, and you're peeling layers back. You're just slowly but surely peeling layers back. Why? Because you're ultimately getting down to the part of the onion that you want to use. Okay, if you have a taste for onions. Okay, but here's the whole premise. We leave too many conversations on the surface. And if we don't dig down, hey, John's back. John has chimed back in. He says, we put our CS team through the same product service training that outside salespeople go through. Yes, yes. But here's the thing that I'm going to challenge you, John. John, is your product and service training all about just that product and service, or is it about truly sales training in terms of how do I use this? Because what you sell is just a medium to help the customer achieve an outcome.
Yeah, I think, as far as listening goes, I want to talk a little bit about this. If I were training a sales team right now, I would send them out on their first set of calls and not let them provide a single solution. The years ago when I sold into banks, I always had a problem with selling from the teller line. And a lot of people wanted their tellers to sell, and I didn't. And the reason was because it's a short conversation. And what I wanted the tellers to do instead was, the moment that they heard a need, I wanted them to send the customer to the customer service desk. And the reason was because the customer service desk was a private place, and the customer could really talk, and we could figure out the depth of their needs. So kind of back to our listener from Creator Media Network. The moment you ask, tell me a little bit about what your goals are for 2024. You get a talker in there, they're going to tell you a lot of goals, a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities. And if you jump on the first one, you'll shut it down. You'll not understand the depth to which you could really help the customer, or more importantly, where the biggest pain point is.
I love that I love that idea of the bank teller, because if you're standing at the bank teller,
You can't really.
it's going to be a single question. It's going to be a single answer, and it's more of a transaction. But if you get them to sit down with that personal banker, then suddenly a conversation ensues. And this is what's key when we talk about how do you start 2024 strong? You have to be in the mindset that I'm going to have deeper level conversations than I've ever had before. I'm going to go deep, and the only way to go deep is by demonstrating to them that I care because of the questions I ask. And then it comes back to a very simple, basic thing. But whatever it is that they share with you, you ask a follow up question on that to dig deeper. And when you dig deep, it's amazing at what you're going to begin to uncover.
I think that I know we've got to get to the book and
Yeah.
the around the show is going fast, but I think the first thing that I want to wrap this by saying to Dave, and to start the year off strong. Number one, you need to be motivated by really helping people. Number two, you have your number goal out there, but start to think about the behaviors that you're going to put into place day in and day out. I mean, Mark talked about the fact that he's going to go, running today. That's something he does every single day. It's how he stays in shape. He's got a goal this year to run 1,000 miles. Now, 1,000 miles.
Great. Now you've told the world. Yes,
Yeah,
but I will achieve it. I will
yeah.
achieve it.
But my point is, like, you look at a goal like that and it seems insurmountable, but now he's broken it down into what he's going to do every day in order to achieve that. And as long as he meets the daily goal, he'll get there. Sales teams really need that. You need to think about what you've got to accomplish every day in order to ultimately achieve the goal, and then be there to support, coach, and help them. Last but not least, if you want to start 2024 off strong, get a community, a mastermind, a group of people. If you are not in one, join us at Sales Logic Mastermind. All right, Mark, what's up as far as the book and the lightning round?
Hey, the book is we got to put, because another mastermind member, Natalie, has chimed in. So, listening and then pushing to absorb what is said, is key before responding to add value. That's right. You listen, you add value by asking questions. The book today, and you're going to have to introduce the book because I was just out on Amazon. You wrote a review for it. The book is The Anatomy of Leadership by Chris Como. Just came out a couple months ago. So tell the audience about the book. I got to buy it. I got to read it.
Yeah. So Chris Cuomo is a longtime friend, colleague of mine. We partner on quite a few things. This is his first book, The Anatomy of Leadership. And it is probably one of the best books I have ever read on leadership. Really breaks down what leadership is, which is something that people don't talk about nearly enough. And then after that, really the importance of leadership and the role that it plays in taking organizations, teams, and leaders to the next level. So check it out. We'll put it in the show notes. And Mark, what's up on the lightning round?
Lightning round, top 10 strategies to stay motivated. Go.
Number one, surround yourself with the right people if you want to stay motivated.
Number two, set yourself the 10 a.m. rule. 10 a.m. rule is simply that you're going to accomplish something significant before 10 a.m. each day.
Yeah. If you want to stay motivated, number three is have a morning routine. Condition your brain first thing in the morning to start the day off right.
Set goals for the year and share them with others. Be willing to be held accountable.
Yeah. Number five, focus on behaviors. The number goal is important, but you're going to get a lot of motivation from focusing on behaviors.
Number six, hey, it's okay. You're going to stumble and fall. There's going to be days that you're going to, you pick yourself back up and go. And this is why you want to be accountable to other people who will help you pick yourself up when you fall down.
Yeah. Number seven, understand that motivation comes from progress. Is that this isn't about exceeding the goal or even hitting the goal, but are you doing better than you did last year? Are you doing better than you did last week?
Number eight, remember, it's your goals. It's not somebody else's goals. I don't care what's going on outside. It only matters what's going on inside. You control your accomplishment. You control your achievements.
Yeah. If you want to stay motivated, give yourself some sort of celebration when you do the behaviors that you are supposed to do, whether that is, going out with friends, maybe it's, eating something you want to eat or taking a couple of hours off or whatever it is that works for you. But I know if I do certain things, I get to leave and go play tennis. I get to leave and go play golf, go for a mountain bike ride, do something like that. But if you want to stay motivated, give yourself rewards.
Number 10, create a journal. Write down every day or every week, what is it that you've accomplished? You may get down. And what you do is you scroll back and look at some previous weeks, some previous months, go, wow, hey, I accomplished that. And it's amazing how your own historical actions will motivate you to go forward. So,
Yeah.
hey, with that, we want to, yeah,
I
go
just
ahead,
want to
Mary, jump in.
say to Dotine, I'm with you. I love the lightning round too. It's one of my favorite pieces. But go ahead, Mark.
Hey, and we put it at the end of the show to keep you listening, right? With
Yeah,
that, we go,
right.
hey, thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, would you tell a friend about our show? Because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
Uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
and the sale becomes logical.
All right. I've got to say that I think the number one way to stay motivated is to join the Sales Logic Mastermind. Go to saleslogicpodcast.com, enter your questions there so we can feature you here on the show. And if you need a community, check out the Mastermind. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic.